Hey, what's going on? Jordan Taylor here from STARTA.ca, and I am here today with another video. Now, last video I spoke about how creating a podcast is a great way to reach your audience, and it's a great piece of content to be able to put out. So I wanted to kind of quickly go over a very simple process on how to start a podcast, how to build and grow an audience with one, and how to kind of keep it going so that you don't just make one episode and get stuck. Because if you're anything like me, I know I've done that in the past where, I've made one episode of something and I wasn't either happy with it, or I put it out and it was just crickets, nothing happened. I know I've also felt the way where there's so much stuff out there around the things I want to talk about. I, feel, almost scared to even kind of start, because who am I to be saying these things? And this is a common fear that a lot of us have, imposter syndrome and all of that. So maybe you felt this way before as well, right? Maybe you feel that podcasting sounds great and everything, but I have no idea how to do it. I don't know the first thing about it. If you've ever been in that situation, because trust me, I have, it's very doable. And through a bunch of trial and error, I have found a very, very, very simple process for it. It's really only 3 steps, 4 if you want to get fancy, but it really boils down to 3 steps. And I'm going to go over those 3 steps here with you today. So, the first step to creating your podcast, building and growing it, and keeping it going is the most obvious step, which is producing the actual content that is the podcast itself. It sounds pretty self-explanatory, but I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper into it. So when I say the actual content of the podcast, what I mean is not only are you going to make the actual audio that everyone is hearing, right? So you could have a podcast about whatever your topic is, right? And stay tuned to the end and I'll actually explain how you can kind of come up with that content in a way that's for sure to succeed. Stay tuned to the end for that. Now, you want it, so that audio you're going to have, right? Your actual speaking audio, whatever your topic is about, you might have theme music in there, right? Or music underneath whatever you're talking about, right? I'm also talking about staple segments. So if there's going to be any segments that are going to be present in every episode, maybe you do a plug to your website, or maybe you have someone or something you want to shout out in each episode. You want to have that in there as well. And in this first step, you also want to create, your cover art, your description for all your episodes, and you want to create that all at once. Now, what I recommend doing, and what I've done in the past, is create as many episodes as you would consider to be one group or one season, right? So whether that's 3 episodes, 5 episodes, or 20 episodes, whatever you're comfortable doing. I recommend at least 3, right? Just because that way it kind of seems like you're not just, you tried it once and stopped. But I would start with 5 if you really want to be thorough with it. Start with 5. Create all the audio for all 5. Create descriptions for each episode. Create your cover art. All of that for all 5 episodes, and I'll explain why in this next step. Because the second step of what you're going to be doing is, and this is the part where a lot of people slip, myself included. You want to actually create your release or your launch plan for your podcast, right? So what this entails is creating a content calendar, right? So when are you going to put out each episode? Are you going to put it out every day? That might be a lot, right? That might be a lot for you to kind of keep up. Is it going to be once a week, twice a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month? Whatever you feel is going to be not necessarily the most manageable, but the most effective. Because remember, you're making all your episodes at once, okay? Now, you're going to be doing that. So that's your content calendar. That's going to come in handy later. You also want to look into your podcasting platform. The one I use is called Anchor. It's so amazing, and it's free, which is awesome. And they have everything in there. You can actually produce your podcast episode in the actual software. You can distribute it to all the podcasting platforms, Apple, Spotify, you name it. Everything is in there. So that's your podcasting platform. You also have your social media platforms, your Facebooks, your Instagrams, Twitter, what have you. You want to make sure all of those are set up as well. You have all those accounts set up. And then also for your social media, I would personally say invest in a publisher, right? So that's something like a Buffer or Hootsuite. And basically what it is you create your posts in advance, and this publisher publishes to your social media, platforms on your behalf, right? So I could make a Facebook post today and I have it post 2 weeks from now. This is where it goes back to your content calendar. In that content calendar, you want to have everything. The actual timing of when you're going to do everything, your episodes, your promotion on social media, all of that good stuff, right? And as well as, whether you're having your social media posts, your blog posts, email or newsletter emails, if you do that kind of stuff, you want to create all of that. That's part of your launch plan, right? So that is very important. You want to create all of that at once as well. And then you're going to drip out or slowly release all of your episodes, your promotional stuff, according to your content calendar, using your social media publishing platform and then your podcast publishing platform as well. So it all relates, right? And then the third step, which is the most important, because if you have ever released a podcast, you might have noticed, you know what? Hey, I put out 3 episodes and they all got 2 listens each. Nobody really was listening. One, if you're like me, you may not have had the content calendar set up. You didn't have a release or a launch plan. And you also didn't do this third step, which is engaging with your niche and your audience. So for example, I have a podcast called Thank Grat for That. It's a podcast about gratitude, practicing gratitude, and the law of attraction. And what I did with this particular podcast is I started, following other pages that talked about this kind of stuff on social media, right? Commenting on their posts and looking at people who used hashtags related to my podcast. And I started interacting and engaging with these people. And then I have more of a community to release my content to. So it's very important that you do that as well. Now, I did mention getting a little bit fancier. You could add in a 4th step, which would be getting paid from doing these things. And now whether you're doing something like a Patreon or a paid membership thing, you can do that. That's one way. Another way, which a lot of people do, most podcasters do, is through sponsorships. Now, the program I mentioned earlier, Anchor, they have a built-in sponsorship tool if you're in the US. If you're outside of the US, like I am, then you'll have to kind of go more of a grassroots route to get sponsorships. But essentially, those are the 3 borderline 4 simple steps for how to actually create a podcast, get it going. Now, if you want to come up with an idea for a podcast, you like the idea of having a podcast, but you don't have your idea in terms of what your subject matter should be, I encourage you to go to STARTA.ca, or I'll leave a link below for where you can download my guide for how to get your online empire jump started, right? Podcasting is one of the ways. But if you need to think of a topic, you need to think of an idea, right? Follow this guide. I break down, I think it's about 4 steps. It's about 2 pages on how to actually get this done. I encourage you to download it. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today. My name's Jordan. Thanks so much for tuning in. Take care.